Okay, moving on to the terrain, the existing terrain, or generically, I guess you could call it a digital terrain model, a DTM. You've probably heard it called. Um, IDOT used the Geopack software for a long time, and their DTM format was a TIN, a TIN, triangulated irregular network. They're all very similar, but in ORD, we use a terrain. Now, that terrain could be just the terrain itself, just like that's the way it was in the previous software. There was no topo in it. It was just strictly the DTM. Nowadays in ORD, especially if it's a brand new survey, a survey that was processed in ORD, not one that came from the past type thing. Nowadays, what you would see is just one file that contains both the topo and the terrain. It's all kind of one and the same. And you could sort of see that here because, as I've mentioned at the beginning of this project consists of multiple surveys, really. Some older surveys, some new survey, and actually some LiDAR that's all been kind of combined. So this job's maybe, I don't want to say unique because it's not drastically uncommon for that to happen, but it's not maybe as clean as if it was a brand new survey and there was not a bunch of surveys combined, but it's just the way it is. So let's get going here. Okay. So let's see, I'm sitting in the alignment file, and really the reason why I want to talk about the terrain next is because we want to profile this alignment. In ORD, the profile is actually in the alignment file, and that's going to be the next step. So let's get going. Okay, I'm going to go to my reference file or reference dialog, and I want to attach the file from the surveys folder named all because that's just because that's what we need to do in this in this case. Okay, it looks like maybe not all the levels were turned on, so I'm over here in the level dialog. I'm going to select that file, turn on all the levels, so it brings up the boundary of this terrain file. It also brought up, let's see, let's bring back the reference dialog. Yeah, it also brought back some of the topo. You can see that it contains some topo, but not all the topo. So anyway, that's why we're sticking with that topo file that we initially created, that 2D topo file, because it is complete. But what we need from this one is that terrain. And so what you do is after you reference that file in, I'm going to hover over that pink line, and then I'm going to make that the active terrain. But I guess before I do that, let me show you. I guess I must have done this already. Normally, there's only a 2D default model for this alignment file. But what happens is when you hover over that terrain and you make it active, then it does create a 3D model as well. And then you can actually look at both the 2D and the 3D at the same time by right-clicking, go to View Control, and then go to this Plan 3D. And it's going to bring up two views. I'm going to do a fit view on both, kind of zoom into that same area. And see all the, I guess you can see all those dots out there. That's actually LiDAR data that was incorporated to create the terrain. That's why you're seeing all that. And so the next step is that I could also bring up a profile window. So right now I've got my 3D, and we can see that it's 3D by if I select that window first to make that the active window, I go up to rotate view, and then I snap to something so we don't shoot off in outer space. Then I can kind of twist this around, and you can see that there's the topo, but and the terrain, but it's in 3D now. So that's a 3D file. And so you can see that we're in one design file, but notice when I made that file active that it became the 3D file. Or if I go over here and I click on this window, it's a 2D file. And that's because if I look at my models, I can see that this one design file contains a 2D and a 3D. But let's keep talking about this project. I guess this isn't an ORD fundamentals class necessarily. You can watch the Bentley videos to learn all these fundamentals of ORD. Okay, so the next thing that we could do here would be to hover over that alignment, click on that profile view, and then choose a window, data point in the window, and I should be seeing my terrain. Let's see, why am I not? Okay, oh, I see. I think. I was outside of the DTM, I believe. So, I don't know. Let me hover back over that alignment again, do the same thing. See if we get a different result. And we don't. Okay, let me hit pause for 1 second. Okay, I can see what the problem was. Probably good for you to see this, that not everything's perfect every time. Sometimes you have to dig deep to figure out, okay, what's going on here? I thought I was doing it right. But once you do have to dig for it, you tend to remember it that way anyway. So in any case, the reason why the profile was not showing up was that I had mentioned that the terrain needs to be active, and I thought I clicked on it, but I must not have. So let me click on that terrain again, hover over it, and then where it says set active terrain model, I clicked on it, and now when I hover over it, notice that the pop-up box there says that it is the active terrain. So, okay, so I have a terrain referenced. It's the active terrain. So now when I go to profile that alignment, again, I open up any view and I see the profile. And then also notice over here. So right now, I'm sitting in that, again, this is kind of fundamentals type of ORD, but we'll cover, I guess, a little bit of that. Generally, I just want to show you this project, though. But anyway, going back to this alignment, because it's in the same file as this active terrain, when I opened up this profile window, what that's doing is it's taking that alignment and then it's visualizing the terrain where that alignment is, and it makes it look like a profile here, right? And so notice if I hover over it, just like with the terrain, I can also make this profile, the active profile. And so you can have multiple profiles, whether it be the existing or proposed. But in this version of ORD, anyway, you can only have one active profile. So I'm going to select that. And then notice when I did that, the alignment now shows up in 3D. And so that's really what I was working towards. But I'll go ahead and show you something that I did a little different with this project. It's probably good to know the majority of the time this is exactly what you would do, and you don't need to do anything else. But I'll show you what I did with this project. Now, because there was so much stuff in this all file, as I developed the project and I would look at cross sections, I was just seeing all these extra lines show up, like the shape that represents the perimeter of the terrain, and it just wasn't real clean, like a new survey would be. So what I ended up doing was I actually, at least while I was working through this file, I think when I finished, I went back to this terrain, the original survey, and made that the active terrain. But to keep it clean, you can export out just the terrain, so you're not looking at all that other topo and that sort of thing. So within all these other files, it is possible to just have a clean terrain and nothing else. And so in order to do that, you're just going to hover over that alignment, and then you go to the export button, and you can export the terrain in multiple formats. Land XML is getting to be probably the most common one. So I'll select that, and then a couple dialogues pop up. I'll give it a name, description. It's the existing terrain. So I'll accept that, and I'm just going to export the triangles. Yeah. And then it pops up file, says, okay, where do you want to save this file? And you can place this wherever you like. I guess I'll put it in the file that we're in now, the design file. And I think I'll give it a more logical name here. I can keep that, but I'm just going to say existing terrain for this XML file. Okay, so I'm going to save it. And what it's doing, I saved it to ProjectWise. So now, if I go into ProjectWise, into this same folder that we're in here, let's see, did it show up? Oh, did I save it somewhere else possibly? Okay, hang on. Okay, there it is. So I saved it in the wrong project. So let's just move it over. I'm going to copy that from that other project, and then I'm going to place it where I initially wanted it to be, was just in this DGN file. Or not DGN file, but design folder. Okay, so as you can see, it's just one file, an XML file. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a 3D file, and then I'm going to import this XML into that file. So let's do that. And there's also standard file naming conventions, of course, like there is for nearly everything. And so you'll see that right here. So this is saying, okay, if you're going to have your own terrain file, then that's the naming convention for it. So here we go. So we need a 3D file. So I need to grab a 3D seed Oftentimes you can find that in this PW setup. Otherwise, you have to go into the IDOT environment, but I think there's one here. So I'm just going to go to where the seed files are, grab a 3D, copy that, and then I'm going to place that in my design file. Paste it in here. And then I'm going to rename it to what we just saw there a second ago. Let's see, video's running long. Let me quickly do this. I'm just going to call this for now. Nah, I better do it right. Okay, 72K96. So let's see. I think it said terrain existing. I should probably look that back up again. Terrain existing. So existing terrain. So this is just going to be a clean existing terrain file. Okay, I'm going to open up that file. And there's really not much to this, you're going to see. So we're not going to go too much further into this video. But I just wanted to show you that it is possible to export out just the terrain and then work with a nice, clean terrain. Or otherwise, if you need to send a terrain, maybe a proposed terrain to construction or something like that. Okay. So now I'm in just strictly a 3D file. There's no 2D model in here. So I'm just going to go to the terrain button, say from file, and then I'm going to select that XML file. And so it's just going to ask me a couple questions in this dialog, and all this is the same coordinate system. So let me just choose the one that we used on this job. Let's see, Illinois. It was the Harn one. Let's see, where is that at? Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, you can see that there's both metric and English. So let's see. I'm in the West Zone, U.S. foot. Good. Projection. I don't know that I need to set this should all be the same, but I'm going to go ahead and select it just in case. Of course, I probably should have made one of these my favorites. It would make it a lot quicker to get to. Again, I'm going to select it West right there. Okay, I'm all set. I hit the import button. And I'll fit the view. And so there it is. There's nothing else here except just the terrain. There's no topo whatsoever. So now really I could change the feature definition if I liked. Now where I couldn't have before, you couldn't because it would be read only. You can see that I could switch that to, contours or, all the other choices that you just saw there. I can visualize it that way, which it can be very, very useful. That's another, I guess, benefit to having your own terrain. You can do this sort of thing, which can be very useful. Okay, I'm going to stop the video here because the process would be exactly the same. If I was to go back to that alignment file, and I would have just referenced in this terrain file, made it the active terrain, and then I could make my profile active the exact same way. Okay, so I just wanted to show you both methods. So we're going to stop right there.